I'd like to welcome you to the Healthy Lunches and Snacks webinar from University of Florida Extension. I'm Julie England, and I'm a Family and Consumer Sciences with Seminole County Extension. Also with us today are Wendy Lynch, Family and Consumer Sciences agent in Putnam County, and Dr. Wendy Dahl, who's an associate professor at the Food Science and Human Nutrition Department at the University of Florida. Also to mention, we may use some brand names. Generally, we'll hide them, but we do not basically recommend or not anything that we approve. And so we want to start off, let me launch a poll. And we want to do, since you're sitting here eating lunch probably, since it is noon, let's give some thought as to what you're eating. So if you could just click on the poll and it will record it. And so we wanted you to kind of think about what it is that you're eating and think about as we go through today, through the webinar, to get you think a little bit more about it. So we got about 2/3 of you voting. So we'll just give it another quick second to, all righty. So I'm going to go ahead and close it in 3, 2, 1. All righty, all righty. I should be able to, you should be able to see the results, I hope.
We do.
Good. I haven't used a poll in a while. So half of you are somewhat healthy. Some days that's the best we can hope for. And 11 of you are pretty healthy. Now, some of you were not, nobody clicked not very healthy. 2 of you aren't eating lunch today, and then 1 of you is not sure what you're going to eat. So just as we go through here, oops. All right, so hopefully the poll has disappeared from your screen. Is that true, Wendy?
It sure has.
Hooray. All righty, so as we go through this, think about how you might be able to improve your lunch. Even though the majority of you were eating somewhat healthy, we could always do better. And so our goal at lunchtime, but also with snacks itself, is that we want to feed your brain and feed your body so that they're hopefully working at somewhat optimal health. And what you eat obviously has some effect on that, but also especially when you think about lunch, you do have a lunch break, hopefully, and that when you're not sitting listening to a webinar, you're not at your desk. You need to be up and moving and just kind of give your brain a break from work. Because when you come back, even if you don't take a really long lunch, if you step away from your desk for a while and maybe even go for a short walk or just talk to your coworkers, not about work, hopefully, to get your mind off work so that you can maybe have a little bit of relaxation and stress manage, to get off that little hamster wheel and give your brain a break, but also feed your brain, give your brain some food as well as your body. Think about getting some physical activity or even just stretching, something at lunch to get you up and moving. Because you may have heard the statement before about sitting is the new smoking, that people sit way too much, and to get up and move throughout the day in order to help reduce your risk for chronic diseases. So down at the bottom here is a picture of me when I'm hungry. My husband has seen this picture before because I can get darn crabby when I'm hungry. But some signs that you're hungry: lightheadedness, mild to severe headaches, mouth watering, stomach growling, you're restless, you're crabby, and you can be anxious. So by eating correctly, both at lunch, but also having some healthy snacks throughout the day, can make your coworkers and your spouses happy that you're not so crabby. And so some of the effects of hunger, though, are your metabolism may slow down to conserve energy. It kind of can go into like a mini starvation mode, and we tend to overeat when we're hungry. You know, somebody walks by if you're feeling full and somebody walks by with a big plate of cookies, you're less likely to eat them, as opposed to when you're hungry, when you take 2, 3, 4, or whatever. And so when we're hungry, we do tend to overeat when we eat. And also, when we're hungry, there's an increased efficiency of fat storage too. And so that hunger really can affect our effectiveness at work, besides not being particularly physically good for us, but also when we think about our effectiveness at work, we're stressed, we're crabby, everything kind of piles up on us. So by eating healthy food meals throughout the day, snacks and lunch, we can improve our efficiency. Okay. So when we think about eating, and we touched on the healthy eating index last month on our webinar on breakfast. And if you didn't see it, and if you'd like to, just send us an email afterwards, and we'll send you the link to it. Is that the healthy eating index is kind of a measure of diet quality based on the dietary guidelines, which are general research based. Every 5 years they come out with a new set of dietary guidelines. They don't change a lot, but they tweak them in order to help Americans over the age of 2 to eat healthier. And so if we ate perfectly, which we all know we all eat perfectly at all times, the score for the healthy eating index, the high is 100. But the average is just a tad under 59%. And so let's look at a way that we could use the healthy eating index just to visualize it about how we can prove what we eat. So when you look at the bottom, which the healthy eating index is 27, remember the average is 58.5 points. So we've got a lunch that a lot of people eat: a grilled ham and cheese sandwich on white bread, grilled with butter, a bag of chips, and a regular soda. So you've got fat, you've got salt, you've got sugar, you've got not much in the way of fiber. So the healthy eating index on that is 27. So just by tweaking it a little bit, getting rid of the soda and getting rid of the grilled cheese, having just ham on white bread and adding lettuce and tomatoes and mayonnaise, and still having those chips, but switching to 2% milk, we're up to almost double, not quite double, where we are on the healthy eating index of 48. And then just getting rid of the chips and switching to skim milk or fat-free milk, you increase it to 62. And then at the top, we're switching to rye bread. And you could even think of going maybe a little bit better and going to a whole wheat bread. But we've added fruit. And so now our healthy eating index is up to 93. So as we go through, think about tweaking how you can tweak what you're eating today to make it healthier. And on the dietary guidelines, and often we use the visual for it for the My Plate, which shows having half your plate fruits and vegetables, about a quarter of it protein, another quarter of it grains, preferably whole grain, and then dairy. Also, you can break it down into kind of this general list of how you use the macronutrients. And so that 40 to 65% of your diet carbohydrates. And really, when you think about what you eat, it's not just that you're eating 45 to 65% carbohydrates, it's the quality of your food. So when we think about quality carbohydrates, things like fruits, whole grains, vegetables, and then 10 to 35% of the calories from protein, and then 20 to 35% of calories from fats. And so this is kind of, everybody's a little bit different, but this is kind of some really good general guidelines to think about when you're thinking about the overall quality of your diet. So I also like to, when you're thinking about quality, especially when you're eating, to think about the term of satiety. And satiety is basically that you eat and that you're not hungry after you eat, as opposed to if you eat a lot of things that have a lot of sugars in them, that an hour later you're still hungry. And so by having that balanced diet where you're balancing some of the protein and the carbohydrate as well as fat, it helps you feel full. And also if you have fiber, which isn't one of the macronutrients, it's part of the carbohydrates, the more fiber you have in the diet, it takes longer to digest. And so you feel full longer. And so by having quality proteins and quality carbohydrates with fiber and fat, you'll have that full feeling, as opposed when you go out. And have you ever gone out and had a really high carbohydrate lunch or really fatty, and all you want to do is when you get back to work is to basically fall asleep? So you're there working and you're tired. So if you have a satisfying lunch, but not too much of it, and not feel hunger later on, you'll be more effective, as well as it'll be better for your health. So So let's think about how many times do you eat out a week? If you want to chat in their in the thing into the chat box about how often do you eat out, and what are some of the healthier things that you do when you eat out? Because eating out can be expensive. It takes time. Depends on how far away you are from a restaurant. But it takes time to go out, come back. Could you more effectively have brought your lunch and then gone for a walk? And also, it can be really hard to eat out, to eat healthy when you're eating out, as well as the fact that portion control may be challenging when you're fixing your own food at home. Um, you really can be a little bit better with the portion control. All right, only once a week, 0 to 1 times a week. Most every day, somebody eats out. So if you eat, so think about how at least making healthier choices when you eat out if you're eating out. And so here's an example, just to kind of view. This is from one of the main chain restaurants. I just pulled up their website and pulled this information off. So they're not any different than most chains. But when you look at that, and you can, if they're changed, you can look and see. So I want to remind you what the general recommendations are for sodium, which is 2,300 milligrams for the general population a day, and 1,500 milligrams or less if you're middle-aged, African American, have high blood pressure, heart disease, or diabetes. So as we look at that, lots of them meals are giving you 2,400 milligrams just from one meal. And so, for example, the first two, like the buffalo chicken salad, you're way over before you even add salad dressing. And salad dressings tend to have a lot of sodium in them as well. There's some really whopping calorie levels in some of these, as well as a lot of fat. And so really think about if you're eating, so think about the choices that you made. So you think you might eat the black bean and veggie fajitas because they're vegetarian. Well, they do have quite a lot of fat. They have a lot of carbohydrates because of the beans, and they do beans are a good source of protein, but look at the sodium in it, and that's without any toppings or the tortillas. So you're probably not eating black bean and veggie fajitas without tortillas or toppings. And so just some things to think about when you go out to eat, terms to avoid. If it says au gratin or scallop, they've got cheese and or butter or something creamy in them. Certainly, obviously, fried, sauteed is often in some kind of fat, gravy. Glazed, a glaze usually has quite a bit of sugar in it. So look for healthier choices. Roasted, grilled, baked, steamed. But also think about asking what you can substitute for fries or chips. A lot of times, sometimes they'll charge extra for a salad, but sometimes all you have to do is ask. And one of the hardest places it is to eat healthy is if you go to some place with a buffet. You walk by, in my case, it's the macaroni and cheese that waves to me, but everybody has their kind of trigger foods. And it's really hard to eat healthy at a buffet. It's like, well, I paid good money for this. I'm going to get my money's worth. So think about trying to avoid buffets most often because it's really hard to have portion control. All right, so what about eating out? So actually for this week, we didn't have a lot of leftovers at home, so I did eat frozen foods twice this week for lunch, but I also brought fruit with it. And also I made reasonably wise choices on the frozen food that I bought. And so they're not complete meals, and certainly some are healthier than others. We have some kind of, in our image here, we have some kind of mystery meat with mashed potatoes and corn. Not exactly probably one of the healthier choices. And so maybe something more like the one below, which has at least has some vegetables in it. It's probably got a little less meat in it. It's got rice. In this case, it looks like white rice. But looking at the ingredients when you're buying them, and to keep, I call them my emergency frozen food. We have a refrigerator at work, so I just keep one there for the days when I don't have leftovers and I don't want to go out. But I do try to make sure that I add something with it to make it more of a complete meal. Okay, so let's actually talk about preparing lunches. We talked about frozen and eating out. And in your handout packet, there are some recipes that are a couple of my favorites, and we'll talk about them as we go along. But for example, today, my lunch is leftovers from last night, and which are some chicken fajitas, which were made with leftover roasted chicken. We've been eating off that for several days in one of my favorite products that Wendy Dahl taught me about, which is high fiber tortilla shells. So I've improved my fiber. I'm eating leftovers, and then I also do have an apple to go with it. So, I'm saving money. I'm eating pretty healthy. Could it be healthier? Sure, I could have another vegetable with it. But think about what you have on hand, what you can have for leftovers or planned overs. And if you're having leftovers, to think about when you're serving the meal to take out your planned overs first, because sometimes in your house, if there's anything sitting around, others in your household will eat it up before, and then there'll be nothing left for you to have for lunch. So look what you've got in your refrigerator. Vegetables, whether they're fresh, steamed, canned, frozen, grains, brown rice, any kind of, things like quinoa, things like that, freeze well. And then think about adding protein. So for example, there in the picture here, we have a salad, looks like with brown rice. It's got black beans in it. It's got corn. It's got tomatoes. So we pretty much have some of the major food groups in there. And also it looks like fresh cilantro in it. So that sounds like a pretty healthy kind of lunch. Maybe have a piece of fruit with it. Maybe even up the beans to give it a little bit more protein. Also freezing leftover meat. If you've got leftover roast chicken, leftover grilled chicken, or any other kind of protein, then you can just pull it out to have for lunch. So when we think about protein, mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint about that the general recommendations for how much protein are 10 to 35% of your daily calorie intake from protein. And more specifically, if you're trying to figure out what specifically you should eat, generally speaking, is you can look at the calculation, and you can get this when you download the PowerPoint, but basically 0.8 grams of protein for every kilogram, 2.2 pounds of body weight. And that can maybe help you tweak it. If you're an athlete, you're potentially going to may need more, but this is a good general recommendation when you're trying to figure out how much protein you should be eating each day. And so here are just a couple examples, and a really nice website to look for information on what's the nutrient content of your foods are on the slide, which is the USDA nutrient database. And you don't need the link. You can just Google USDA nutrient database, and you'll find all kinds of foods that will give you not only the calories, but also the nutrition specifics on more than you ever wanted to know, probably, about what's in your particular food. You can do a short list or a long list. The long list is really long. It breaks it down into a lot of different nutrients. But especially if you have a particular health issue that you need, especially like kidney disease, when you're trying to keep track of phosphorus and potassium, it's a great place to go for information. So think about the quality. We're talking about quality carbohydrates, but also the quality of your protein, to choose lean protein most often. It doesn't have to be actual meat. It could be seafood. It could be vegetarian, like tofu. Eggs are a great source of nutrients, especially the yolk is where the powerhouse of the nutrients is. Having, frozen chicken, canned chicken, things like that, or tuna is certainly an easy way to have things in your pantry so that you can create a healthy lunch, and also snacks, but also beans. Wendy Dahl said one time, if there ever was a superfood, since superfoods tend to be rather oversold, if there was ever a superfood, the bean group would be one of them. And if you're using canned, you might want to run some off to get some of that extra sodium off of it. Also, back to the diet quality is lunch meat. So it's really easy to go to the deli and buy sliced ham or sliced whatever, but to think about, lunch meats have been associated with some more risks for cancer. So we want to encourage you to think more about maybe even making your own meats, like roasting a roast beef, or sometimes I'll buy a piece of fresh turkey and roast it. With the healthy eating index and stuff, people who eat lunch meats, cold cuts, and deli meats tend to have a higher intake of calcium, protein, calories, sodium, and saturated fat. But it really wasn't quite clear why the protein and calcium were higher, except for the fact that possibly it's because that people also have cheese along with their cold cuts, like ham and cheese as opposed to just ham. However, the saturated fat and sodium, as well as calories, were definitely more common with people who consumed lunch meats. But not a lot of difference in the healthy eating index in general. But do try to reduce your amount of deli meats. So how you can do that is maybe making some better sandwich choices. If you're going to have sandwiches, about choosing, you can sometimes buy thinner sliced bread or slice your own, but choose whole wheat breads most often. And then try not to use fried products, grilled, roasted. Roasting a chicken is really easy. Or you can buy already roasted. If you roast your own, then you have more control over the sodium in it. But think about loading your sandwich up with veggies. So in this picture, it's got sliced radishes. Who would have thought about putting sliced radishes in there? When you change the texture and add crunch, like also cucumbers in here, when you change the texture of it, it also kind of gives us more mouthfeel. And that also can add not just the flavor, I don't know, kind of the whole, just the eating experience in a way. That you're not eating some kind of a mushy sandwich, you actually have something with crunch. And then back to beans. So many ways that you can eat beans. And Wendy's going to talk about hummus a little bit later, but they really are a great source of fiber, great source of protein. They're inexpensive, they're filling. You can keep them on hand. You can make chili. You just add them to salad. So many different things that you can use beans for. So look for ways that you can use them creatively. And so when we think about carbohydrates, a lot of times people think, oh, yeah, carbohydrates, they're evil. They're really a very important part of one of the major macronutrients and important to our good health. But it's really back to quality and limiting added sugars. But you can get them so many different ways. And so when you're planning your lunches and snacks, don't forget about both canned and also frozen ones. So having something like chopped spinach in your freezer that you could get out and mix it with, some brown rice and maybe some leftover chicken. Or if you have fresh fruits in your hydrator that you haven't used or that you steamed them the night before, you've got them left, you can mix these all together and make a pretty darn healthy and tasty lunch. And so with grains, lots of different kinds. Over on the right are tabbouleh, two different ones that I've made in the past. One's with brown rice, one's with bulgur. Traditional tabbouleh has whole wheat in it, but I've made it with brown rice. I've made it with quinoa. And rice and other grains freeze really well. So if you make a batch, what you can do is spread them out on a sheet pan and stick them in the freezer and get them frozen, and then kind of break them up into blobs and then put them in a plastic bag in your freezer, and use a freezer bag and put them in your freezer. That way it makes it easy for you to pull out like kind of a hunk of rice and thaw it out and mix it with something else to make a complete meal. If you just cram a bunch of rice into a bag, you're just going to end up with one big blob of rice. So by putting it in that pan, kind of quick individually freezing it, it's a lot easier to pull out. Alrighty, so do we have any questions that we need to address, Wendy, or are we doing fine?
We are doing just great.
Great. All right. So salads. Have you ever gone out for a salad and there's like almost no lettuce, kind of like this picture? It's this big blob of meat or everything else and very little lettuce. So just because it's a salad doesn't mean it's particularly healthy. So think about the salads that you make. So for example, the previous slide, when I talked about the restaurant meals, there was the buffalo chicken salad. Not exactly one of the healthier options. So think about, You can bring a salad as a side dish. So if you're making a frozen meal, maybe make a small salad to go with it, adds interest, enhance your nutrition, or use it as a main dish. And do add multiple food groups. We have salmon with a little bit of Parmesan cheese in the picture, probably a little too much salad dressing on the greens, but I couldn't find a better picture. But by adding multiple food groups, and also you'll add more nutrition, also adding maybe some chopped nuts or something like that to give it some crunch, to add that texture, to make it interesting to eat. But you can use it, think of it as a meal. Start with something as a base, and don't think just plain lettuce. If you've got arugula, there's certainly a lot of different choices anymore in the ready-made salads, in the bag salads. So make it interesting, and then throw a variety of different things in there to give it flavors. Fruits, if you got frozen fruits, we've got frozen blueberries at the moment in our freezer, so every once in a while I'll thaw those out and throw them on a salad. Select a lean protein, then give it something with texture, and then think about your salad dressings that you're putting in it, which is the next slide. Oops. We'll talk about salad dressings in a second. So think about things. Mushrooms are really also nutrient-packed product, but beans, grains, and others. So what are some of the things that you like to put in your salads that are a little bit different? Go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we'll look at that in just a second. And so up on the top right-hand corner is a salad that Wendy Lynch made one day for lunch and sent me the picture. But you can make salads in a jar, and the handout down at that's the link on the bottom of the slide gives you some instructions. So you want to put like the wetter stuff, like salad dressing down at the bottom so things don't get soggy, and then you layer it, then you put your lettuce leafy stuff in at the top. So we'll just leave that slide there. So what were some of the ideas? Ooh, sunflower seeds, raisins, ooh, feta, kale, apples, ooh, fresh cilantro, walnuts, garbanzo beans, ooh, hearts of palm. So a lot of different things that you can do to make things tasty, nutritious, and just not the same old kind of thing. Right. So salad dressings are often the biggest source of calories in your salad. So, we do all this healthy stuff and then we pour dressing over it. Also, commercial dressings tend to be kind of high in sugar and sodium. So first of all, for example, if you really like ranch dressing and that's what you want to have, you might want to read all the labels for different things. And just because it says it's lower fat, look and see if they've now added more sugar or sodium to give it flavor. And so look at the labels when you're thinking about that, or even just think about making your own dressing. Some good quality vinegar, oil, some fresh herbs, dried herbs, or you can now get flavored olive oils, things like that. Can really add some nice flavor, give it a fresher flavor, and you have control over the salt. Okay, a couple more things. Think about if you got a leftover potato, top that tater with something nutritious. Just make sure you don't probably want a humongous potato, but good way to add nutrition, use leftovers, things like that. And with soups do tend to be quite high in sodium, and even if they say they're reduced sodium, that only means that they have a third less sodium than the regular soup. So make sure if you're buying canned soup that you read the label. An idea is, and this is in your recipe packet that's in the handout, is a potato soup mix in a jar. And I keep this in my office in a glass jar, and it's for those days when I have nothing to eat. I forgot to get the frozen food. It's not the best thing there ever was, but it really, especially if you have you can bring some cheese to work and mix it in. But it's really nice that you have something that's easy in a jar that tastes pretty good. You just use potato flakes, dry milk, like powdered chicken bouillon, low sodium if you can find it, maybe some salt-free seasoning, and it's really, really handy. You just put some hot water in it, and you've got something to eat that's pretty tasty. This is all recipes also in your handout. Really easy, quick, nutritious. Have a piece of fruit with it. You got lunch. Also, this is yet another recipe in your handout. This is one of my favorite all-time slow cooker meals. It's easy, it's good, it freezes well, and you can use different things for it. You throw chicken breast in the bottom of your slow cooker, throw in some salsas, preferably low sodium, frozen corn, a can of rinsed black beans, cumin. You cook it all day, you come home and you shred it. So you could use it on a salad. I freeze it in portions so that I can pull it out and use it for anything. It's just really, really handy. You can use it as a main dish, that supper, and have leftovers. So it's really something good to try. It's quite tasty and it's easy. All right, so if you got limited time, think about prepping the night before, buying things that are pre-cut, make salads that are going to keep longer. You can make them in the jars for a couple days, but also things like making hummus, bean salad, maybe some marinated vegetables. And then keep a stash of frozen lunches either at home or at work. I like to write my name on them so people know that they're mine. Also, it reminds me that they are mine so I don't accidentally steal somebody else's. And then find products that might work for you to help you make things easier. And with that, we're going to switch over to Wendy, and you should have control over the mouse.
All right. Thank you, Julie. And I have to say, you guys had some really awesome ideas. Constance, I know you had mentioned about adding plain yogurt and steamed squash on potatoes, which I love that because you're adding a veggie and then potentially adding a great calcium source instead of the typical sour cream. So we are going to talk a little bit about snacks now. Snacks are definitely a great way to get additional nutrients from foods that you're not getting maybe throughout the day in your other meals. So for example, if you notice you haven't had any veggies, it's the afternoon, let's say today, adding veggies as a snack would be a great choice. So not only does it provide you with energy, but it's going to give you a low calorie snack. It's also going to be filled with that nutrients and one of my favorites, fiber. So fiber is what's going to help us stay full, as Julie mentioned earlier, and what a great choice veggies would be. I mean, helping your hunger stay at bay, not getting hangry, tiding you over at least until the next meal, and again, provide you with so much energy. So when you're planning ahead, one way to keep portions in check is to go ahead and divide those larger packages into single servings. You might use like either the snack size bags or small glass containers. Again, the key is going to be planning ahead and doing that pre-prep work way in advance. And keep in mind what you select as your snack matters too. Just like Julie said in the lunches, quality absolutely counts. So when you're planning, you want to choose the foods that you're going to get the most bang for your calories. Just like the veggies we mentioned earlier, low calorie, filled with nutrients and fiber, and what's going to provide you with energy. And there we go. So this was a study that looked at children and adults to see if replacing typical snacks with tree nuts and also included almonds, they would have any impact on overall diet quality. And what they found is that replacing snacks with the tree nuts or almonds did lead to lower intake of added sugars, solid fats, sodium, and that was for the overall diet quality. So you remember that healthy eating index Julie's been talking about, that score 0 to 100? Well, those were higher also. They found by replacing these snacks with tree nuts also meant that the study participants had a higher intake of healthy oils, fiber, magnesium, and potassium, which I thought was pretty cool. Because a lot of us go to the nuts as snacks because they're easy grab and goes. So is it healthy to snack? This slide describes a study that was conducted in the U.S. and it looked at adult meals and snacks, and each of these had to contribute at least 50 calories. And what this study found is that people that ate more frequent meals and snacks, they also improved their healthy eating index. And so what this tells us is that including snacks improves overall diet quality, especially when they're healthy snacks. And we're going to look at, get this slide to go. All right, there we go. So we're going to look at, this is similar to the chart that Julie showed you earlier, but this one's for snacks, and this is the healthy eating index. And so the National Cancer Institute created this snack menu that includes basically snacks that most Americans might consume. And you'll see that on the right is the healthy eating index scores. So let's start actually at the bottom of this picture. So this is a snack that has the lowest diet quality with a score of 27. So we got a donut, coffee, and sugar, and also with a little bit of half and half. So we bump up a little bit to 48, and this is going to include a 4-ounce, let's see, 4 ounces of 2% milk, 3 medium chocolate chip cookies. Okay, we've added some milk. That's got some nutrients, but the cookies, maybe not so much. Then jump up to the next one. We've got our low-fat vanilla yogurt. So we may still have some added sugars in that vanilla yogurt, but we are getting some more nutrients from it, as well as the 10-ounce mixed berry fruit juice. And I'm going to assume that maybe that one's not 100% fruit juice, considering it doesn't describe it there. I'm not sure, but look at that serving size of 10 ounces. So to the top, or the high healthy eating index score of 93 is going to give us that same low-fat vanilla yogurt, but instead it's going to replace that juice with a half a cup of cherry. So remember, what's keeping you full, what's going to have the least amount of added sugar, and that half a cup of cherries is also going to have some great fiber. And so the whole purpose of this image is to show you how you can make those small modifications to foods and drinks just to improve your overall diet quality, and making sure that the foods that you are consuming are filled with the things that your body can be fueled with. Sorry, guys. And here we go. So one way to help you plan, prepare, and eat healthier snacks is to take a look at your fridge. Take a look at your pantry. What kind of snacks do you have? Are they packed with nutrients? You know, or are they the snacks, the lickies and chewies that are full of sugar and very few nutrients? And so what about at work? Candy jars are typically not very hard to find in an office. Not that I'm calling anybody out if you have one on your desk right now. And there's oftentimes sweets left in the break room that, you know, you go by, you're not really looking for it, but it's there, so you grab it as a snack instead, maybe leftover donuts from the morning. But what could you choose instead that would be a healthier choice? And I have to oh, we're good on time. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. So what about vending machines? So when I first started at my particular office, I was really excited because I called the vending machine company to see if we could get healthier snacks in our machines. And they were like, absolutely, no problem. So they came out, they grabbed our machine, they left, and did not come back. So we did not get any healthy choices in a vending machine. However, it did reduce our temptation to purchase unhealthy options. So, but now in some vending machines, you do see some healthy options or healthier options. So also, how about on the go? What type of snacks do you carry with you? Is it easier to make healthy choices and maintain your self-control if you're not hungry? It should. Yeah, and so by carrying these snacks, keep it healthy, keep it convenient, whether you're work, home, or on the go. All right, so let's take a look at a few snacks, and we're going to see which would be the best choices. So I'll need you to type in the chat box when we get to that. But just this particular snacks this is an image from choosemyplate.gov. And if you look at the photo on the left, or the snack on the left, well, they look pretty similar. The carrots and celery are both great choices, but there's a little bit of a difference just by adding the hummus in place of that creamy dip. If you notice, the calories are less, the saturated fats are less, sodium is down. And one thing I also want to note is that with the one on the left, you're only getting one food group. And with snacks, I always encourage folks to try to get 2 and 3 food groups. That way your body has different nutrients to work with. And so if we add the hummus, we're adding that protein in, and then of course we have the veggies. So what about almonds? These are pretty popular grab and goes, like I mentioned earlier. So we've got whole natural, lightly salted, and then a smokehouse version. All of them are 12-ounce bags. So let's take a look at the nutrition facts panel. I know it's a little shiny, so it's a little harder to see, but what do you notice about any differences between the natural, the salted, or the smokehouse? Yep, the sodium content for sure. So the natural has the serving size. That's where you want to look first. It's going to have a serving size of 24 nuts versus the 28 nuts in the other 2 packages. if it was 28 nuts on the natural, it'd be about 187 calories, around 15 grams of fat. Pretty consistent is the fiber and the protein. However, that sodium plays a big part. So we're looking at 0 milligrams versus 40 and 150. So what would be our best choice out of these three? Natural, lightly salted? Yep, I would probably go with the natural. All right. So let's look at granola. Now, granola is not all created equal, guys. So we think of granola and we automatically think it must be healthy, but please, please, please read your nutrition facts labels. So we've got two brands, and it's honey almond granola for one, and then our oats and honey clusters with toasted coconut. So, all right, let's flip. So let's look at this. One thing I thought was pretty cool on this particular slide, or on these nutrition facts labels rather, at the top, it actually has it broken down as a snack and a recommended amount. So it says 1/3 cup. So the calories are looking pretty similar. What else do you notice? Anything different? Calories are pretty much the same. Anybody want to take a stab? You got it, that sodium again. So if you're looking at just the snack size, so we look down, we've got on the right-hand side, we've got 25 milligrams, and the product on the left, we've got 55 milligrams for the same amount. And then also, if you look, someone mentioned the fat. So for this one's 3, one's 3.5. So not a huge difference, but we know if it's got more fat, it's got more calories that come from fat anyway. Also the carbs, that was mentioned as well, and the fiber was pretty close. So again, it just means read your labels. Let's check out popcorn. So with the popcorn, ooh, let me jump on back. All right, Julie.
Sorry, that was me. Sorry, I went to unmute myself and took control back. There you go, popcorn.
That sounds good. No worries. All right, so you got your popcorn, the sea salt on the left, and the sea salt on the right. So what do you notice on these? Are they pretty similar? I will tell you the portion size or the servings per container, it shows 4 on both. I'm sorry, there's 3 3/4 cup is the serving size on the right, and then 3 cups is on the left. The servings per container do differ. So what do you notice about the fiber? So the fiber looks like the left side's definitely going to have a lot less sodium. So again, just looking at these just at a quick glance, what would you choose? The left or the right? Or the black bag or the green bag?
Somebody put better for the left. I would agree.
Yep. So again, these are still some great choices, but always check. Just because the outside of the packaging might look better, check the label. All right, let's jump on to the next. All right, so trail mix is another one. We've got a blend on the left and we have one on the right. Just doing a quick glance at these. What's the biggest difference you can see in these two products? So again, check out that serving size. It's not a huge difference when you change it to grams.
One's got chia in it, serving sizes. And what else? Any other ideas? Carbs? Sodium again?
So the right would be a little less in calories, but pretty close if you're comparing the 28 grams to 28 grams instead of the 31 grams in the 1/4 cup on the right. The mix on the right does have more fat and saturated fat, but pretty close for fiber and protein. But check out the sodium. The right
and the
side,
sugars somebody mentioned.
Exactly right. It seems a bit high on the left, but I didn't include the ingredient label. But what you would see if you saw that, you would find that most of the sugar is going to be coming from the from the raisins and the dried apples. But again, that's still as adding sugar to your day. All right, so next up is hummus. So Julie mentioned we were going to talk a little bit about hummus. And you do have this handout in the packet, 12 great ways to use hummus. Hummus is super easy to make. If you've never made it before, I encourage you to give it a go. You can use your chickpeas or garbanzo beans, but you can also use a variety of different beans to make different varieties of hummus. I know I've seen black bean, I've seen white bean. Julie, I don't know if you've seen any others than that.
I've actually made black bean, and you don't, like when you use garbanzo beans, a lot of time you need to put a little bit of water in it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it when you make your own black bean because they're a lot, they just have more fluid in them.
Okay.
But I've made black bean, and I put a little bit of salsa in it. I had some fresh cilantro in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of different ways to use it without adding it. And I know when Wendy and Dahl and I were talking one day, she mentioned that you can also even buy individual tubes of ready-made hummus. So yes, it'd be more expensive, but gee, it's easy, it's convenient, it's healthy. Sometimes convenience and easy outweighs the make your own. And
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right. And I wanted to jump back and answer one question about the popcorn, about which to choose, less sodium or less sugar. It really depends on what your nutritional needs are. If you have high blood pressure, you may want to choose less sodium. If you're diabetic, you want to maybe aim for the less sugar. So it really depends on the individual. So that was a great question. And again, with looking at convenience foods, so store-bought, while it is convenient, you don't really have control over the ingredients. So you do want to read those nutrition facts labels. And again, Julie's got some great recipes in there in the packet for you to try. Definitely easier if you have a blender or a food processor. I have tried making hummus with just a masher. It's not as fun. It's not as fast. So again, those are helpful tools.
A mini food processor is a great tool to have in your kitchen.
All right, so any snack ideas? We've got just a couple more slides to go, but I want you guys to type in any type of snack ideas, healthy snack ideas.
Ooh, carrot hummus.
Mm-hmm. That way we can kind of get ideas for each of us. Celery, carrot sticks, that's great, that's added to yours. So keep typing in. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next. So we're gonna wrap up today's talk on healthy lunches and snacks, but remember to plan your lunches to have a purpose for your body. Make sure they're providing nutrients and energy. So when you're making that choice, really look at it and like, is this providing me what my body needs to make it to the next meal or make it throughout the day to be helpful? So lunch and snack times are also the perfect time to remind yourself to get up and move, change your environment, get away from your desk. Take that time to enjoy the healthy foods and maybe even sneak in some time for de-stressing. So going for a walk and talks with coworkers. Again, like Julie mentioned, try not to talk about work. Take a brain break from it all. And again, do enjoy your lunch, a healthy lunch, that is. And as always, if you guys have any questions, please do continue to type your ideas and any questions you might have in the chat box. So we have a few minutes for questions. But in the meantime, don't forget we will be sending out a short evaluation on today's topic. And please, we do value your feedback. It helps us with ideas and changes that we can make for future webinars. And with that, I want to thank everybody for participating today and typing in the chat box. I see a lot of great ideas. I hope you guys are writing these down as they're popping up. Ooh, roasted chickpeas. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. And you can spice them up however you want.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody mentioned, are there really bad fruits to eat? And Wendy Dahl just replied, all fruits have nutritional benefits, and sometimes, just remember portion size. One thing about dried fruits is they're easy to overeat because they don't have that fluid. So portioning out your fruit, and actually before the webinar, Wendy Dahl and I were talking, and we were laughing about, this was when we were planning it, and that she went from eating cookies to having almonds at her desk, but she's wise and she portions them and brings them to each day and with maybe a dried date in it. I used to have almonds right by my desk, and my problem with them was I didn't portion them, and they're crunchy, so I tended to eat too many of them. So now I don't buy them, but now I need to start bringing them back because they're a great snack, but I need to portion them and not have them there.
Yep,
the recipe handouts, somebody mentioned the recipe handouts. When you go to the link listed above, there's 3 things in there, the slide handout and 2 versions, as well as the handout that's got recipes and other information, including the hummus recipe.
Yep, and I just reposted that link in the chat box.
And I'll send it back out to everybody afterwards when I send the link to, afterwards I'll send out the link one that's posted for the recording for anybody who came in late, or somebody who is multitasking, probably got interrupted by his coworkers. So I'll send that out later today or tomorrow morning.
Sounds like a good idea. Thanks for all the great ideas, you guys, and we look forward to having you at our next webinar. And with that, I hope you guys have a great afternoon.